one habit that I'd like to share that I've kind of tweaked recently, and it was actually reading a book that wasn't about screens or tech use. It was a book about stress, and it's called The
Mm.
Stress Prescription by Dr. Elisa Epel. She's a world-renowned scientist who studies the science of stress. And one of the things she said is that our cortisol level, the stress hormone, it naturally spikes in the first 30 minutes after waking up. And she suggested that we don't like look at our phones in that first 30 minutes because it's increasing our risk of reading, watching something stressful. So it might be an email that I check first thing in the morning. It's, oh God, my teaching assistant isn't going to be in school today. And suddenly I feel more stressed, or I click on the news and something dramatic's happened somewhere around the
Mm.
world. And what she says is in that 30 minutes, if you consume something stressful, your cortisol then spikes and it's very hard to come back down from that. So anyway, my little habit is I leave my phone in a different room for that first 30 minutes. And it's honestly had such a big impact, just a small tweak. And what I also find is that even after that 30 minutes, that inclination to check my phone is kind of just not there. But
Mm.
I notice when I do go on my phone first thing, I'm then on my phone more regularly throughout the morning.
Yeah.
And it's just, I've talked to that. I've got an 8-year-old and 10-year-old boys, and my wife and I've done this little habit together because it helps more when as a couple, you're both modeling the same habits rather than,
Yeah.
you know. And we've talked to our boys and said, we're doing this deliberately because we feel like we're on our phones too much. We're more present with our kids in the morning, having chats over breakfast rather than, scrolling whilst trying to butter some
Mm.
toast. And yeah, I just find that idea of just tweaking habits that you talk about in your book really empowering.
Yeah.
And, that fear mongering that exists kind of diminishes because you feel more in control. Like I can actually tweak this habit that's not working for me, and I can talk to my kids about it, and I can show them how I'm taking control of this situation. And yeah, it's all about
Yeah.
developing those healthier habits.
I think that's a great one. Sort of two things to say about that you've
Yeah.
made me think of. So one is sort of part of what you're creating there is something that I call in the book about this idea of creating offline moments in our
Hmm.
lives. And I think this is really important. And it's really important at schools to create kind of these spaces where kids can just play
Hmm.
in an unstructured way and not have to worry about what's kind of going on in the world around them and all those sorts of things. But also at home as well, like creating protected spaces where the focus is not we are doing this because we don't want to be on our tech,
Mm.
but the positive version of that, which is, to give you an example, if it's no phones around the dinner table, you can
Yeah.
frame that in a really weird way sometimes, which is that we're all on our phones all the time at the dinner table, and this is bad because phones are bad or whatever, so we're going to not do that. But the reason that you're doing it is to create this space where you can check in with each other and see how your days are going. And I know that always doesn't always work with kids. They don't want to talk about their days, but creating those spaces where you can be present in that moment and just be there with them, and just kind of hold on to those really precious moments of time. They're not small for very long.
Mm.
And making the most of those moments, I think, can be really important for us and for them. I think the other thing to say is that I kind of feel like this has been happening to me a little bit recently. It's like you can implement these tweaks, these slight habit changes, and sometimes they'll go backwards. In fact, quite a lot of the time they'll go backwards. Again, it goes back to that idea of habits are really hard things to change. Any sort
Mm.
of habit, it takes a lot of time and willpower and effort and those sorts of things. One thing that I found recently, though, is that by kind of becoming more aware of when I'm using my phone and I'm particularly becoming more aware of when I'm using my phone when I don't want to be. I found that quite useful as an indicator of, and this is a really hard thing, like thinking about, is there something else going on in my life that I need to be thinking about and need to be addressing? So I'm kind of, going on my phone almost as like a deliberate distraction, a way to kind of escape. And that's not a good thing because then I'm on my phone more than I want to be, not doing anything useful or fun or productive. But when I've like stopped and interrogated that, I've gone, it's because I'm really stressed out about this thing that's going on at the minute. So actually, I need to do something about that as well. And again, that can be a really useful thing. You know, if you can catch yourself in those moments and think about what else is going on around me that's lending itself towards me engaging in this sort of behavior, hopefully that could be a
Yeah.
helpful thing.